So at this time, I'd like to call to order this facilities workshop. Dr. Pace, you have.
Thank you, Chairman Soto and members of the board. We're excited this afternoon to try our first workshop via WebEx. It's going to be an interesting experience, but we appreciate everybody's patience and flexibility. Mr. Clint, our Chief Facilities Officer, is ready to go, along with a supporting team of our contractors and architects who are here to share with you some exciting information about the progress we're making on our facility projects. Mr. Clint?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. This is the facilities workshop. I apologize. Let me get to the front. This is the agenda. We'll be covering two items today, the Canoe Creek K-8 project update and the Point Santa High School lighting update project. So first, the Canoe Creek K-8 project update. We'll provide a little bit of background before I turn over to our presenters from Ziskovich Architects. First, I would like to recognize Ziskovich Architects for all their assistance with helping us through the virtual page flip. So following the executive order is right about the time that we were scheduled to do these. Ziskovich Architects was very helpful in allowing us to connect with all our stakeholders so that we could complete that tedious process. That took a week, so that it allowed us to get our project into production design. So it was a heavy lift. Thank you to Ziskovich Architects. First, we'll be talking about the year one and the year two work, just to provide a refresher from the workshop that we provided back on January 7th. Year one is to open as a K6 in the fall of 2020. Year two is to open as a full K8 in the fall of 2021. So the year one work will take place this summer. So lots of work that will have to be completed over the summer. And we are now teeing up that work. You will see several items on this evening's board agenda for Canoe Creek K8. So the year two will also start this summer. The plan is to take that project out to bid as soon as construction documents are completed, and hopefully be able to hit the ground in late July. So with that, I will turn it over to our presenters, Mr. Jose Marguito, project executive with Ziskovich Architects, and our project architect, Don Hetzer. Jose, take it away.
Thank you, Mark, and good afternoon, board members, chairman. We're absolutely delighted to have a chance to share with you virtually what we have in mind. I think it's one of the most exciting things to happen in education in Central Florida. You see what I mean as we go through the slides that we have for you this afternoon. What I'm going to do is have Dawn just highlight briefly what some of the year one work that Mark had described, which is generally to prepare the school for the transition from a charter school to an Osceola school. So Dawn, if you could just give us a quick highlight over that.
Hello, board, and it's nice to be with you, and welcome to Canoe Creek K6 and then K8. So for the first year, we call it year one, which begins this summer, and of course the school will open this fall. Just going to run over a few items that we're doing. Architecturally and civil-wise, first, we're replacing, repairing, and adding new fencing to create a level 2 security barrier. We're also resealing and restriping the existing parking and drive, so that will give it a fresher new entry. Third, we're replacing all the gutters on the project. We're adding a new tot lot and youth lot playground structures. We're modifying the group toilet room by putting in new toilet partitions. We're rekeying the existing doors. And let's see, mechanical wise, we're cleaning all the existing ductwork. We're flushing the chilled water lines. We're building a new automation controls placement system for the existing school, and Plumbing wise, we're replacing all the water heaters. There are 2, so we're replacing those 2. Electrically, we are relocating the main MDF room to a new room. And when the new building is built, that will contain the new MDF room, and the one in the existing building will be an ancillary use. We really look forward to the project. I'm so excited about it and integrating the existing campus into our new structure. And so, Jose, I'll leave it to you.
Well, thank you, Don. So things really get exciting in year 2. So what happens in year 2 is we actually will be opening the school as a K-8. And because it will transition as a charter school to an Osceola school, there is a little bit of bruising, we thought, from the parents' perhaps perspective as to, you know, why did the charter school close, and is this the best place for our children? And when we initially visited the site, we were absolutely taken by what a wonderful reception this school has by having a fantastic foreground of a conservation area. And then you see the building in the background. And we thought, instead of that being an encumbrance or something, a nuisance to work around, we thought it was perhaps the best thing and the biggest classroom that the new building could offer. So with that, as you see in the picture there, this conservation area is about 1/3 of the site. And the area that's green between the existing building and that is where the new building will go. And Mark, if you could show the next slide. And this is the view that greets you. As you drive in around that curving driveway, you have these wonderful pines, and you have the existing building in the foreground, but this is what you see. So it kind of sets the tone for a very special learning experience for the kids. And that was really where the E-STEM idea comes from. And you'll then be received by a brand new facade on the building. It's a rebranding of the building. So it is intended to be one story at the front where the administration is, then it steps to a 2-story building. So it actually ties into the existing school that's there, which is all a 1-story facility. And once you go through those doors that are just beyond that, you end up in a highly secure, super safe school. I'll talk about it in a minute. The entry sequence of the school is around a lake that's off to the top of the picture there. And one of the things we've done is, since there will be more students coming in, we've enhanced the drop-off zone. So it's actually been extended. And as you leave the school, there'll be a bioswale at the front there, which is that green spot as you drive into the school. But one of the things you'll notice is that the school kind of tucks and kind of wiggles into place. And you could see the track that tries to, we were able to actually fit a full track in there. We spoke quite a bit about this with the stakeholders. There was a lot of discussion as to the type of amenities that was there, but we were able to, as you can see, squeeze it in. And there's also a trail that leads through those preserve areas that tie right into the building, which creates a wonderful classroom learning opportunity. The existing school is just beyond in the distance in this slide here. You can see the lake that's currently there. It's an existing lake. We're looking at the parent drop-off now in the parking lot that's existing there. That'll be resurfaced at the year 2 work. And there'll be ample parking for after hours, as well as faculty and staff. The facade's been designed to tie into the existing school. The existing school has a metal roof, so we have a series of metal roofs in the new building that kind of stitch it together to create one holistic feel. We are even painting some of the existing colors into the new building. But this is what you're looking at here, which is the front entrance of the school. It kind of is the joint where the existing meets the new. But there's also an after hours entrance immediately to the left of it, which is the entry to the Scientorium, which is a new concept that has all of the science labs circulating around it. And just beyond that is the gym, which has its own after-hours entrances. So the school has, a strong commitment to community participation, and that gym could also be almost an arena for STEM as well as athletic events that could take place in the evenings or on the weekends. As we continued driving around, we also know that all schools grow, and so we have planned the school for future portables as well. So on the west side of the campus there, we have an area that is dedicated for that. We'll also have the fire lane that goes through that zone there. But in the meantime, it will be used as a green zone for the kids to play. That's where the younger children will be. We go to the next slide. And this is what greets the kids every morning as mom and dad drops them off. This is the front door. It's a single point of entrance, high security entrance. Once you go through this door, the building goes into a lockdown mode, and the only way to get in is through that point. All classrooms are designed with hard corners. So in case of intrusion, there is a safe place for students and teachers to go out of the cone site of a shooter event. So it's planned with maximum safety and security in all of the interior learning spaces. Here's a bird's eye view of the new coming together with the existing. The existing one is that U-shaped building, but in between those courtyards, there's gardens where the classrooms are actually extending to the outside, and those are the younger grades, kinder through third grade on that part of the building. And there'll be opportunities to plant outdoors. And as the children grow to the 8th grade, they'll be working with more sophisticated conceptual environmental ideas as well. So you kind of graduate into the building, which is important because one of the schools that they're going to go to is the high school that has a robust agricultural program. And speaking of the outdoors, this is the gym that opens out into the track and soccer field in this area. And you can see the trails that are just tucking underneath those trees there. And those trails tie into what's called an Eco Porch, which is an outside area that opens right off the classrooms. And Mark, if you go to the next slide, you can take even a little peek at what that looks like. So this Eco Porch is an outside learning space for the science labs, but it's also a place where kids could have lunch outdoors. And it has a STEM lab immediately off from the gymnasium building, which you can just see on the right-hand side of that. There's just another view. There's the bus drop-off and the service yard. The service yard's tucked away discreetly off the side. You can just see it just beyond the bus yard, that area. The buses are designed in such a way so the kids feed into all grade levels from this location. So they'll be able to feed between the courtyards of the existing school and new school from one location, which makes it very easy to supervise the bus entrances. Okay, and here we're leaving again. You get a view of this is the bus, the gymnasium after hours entrance. Okay, and so what we did was this is the elevations of the building, and we looked to the natural setting to inspire how the building should be painted. So we took our cue from the bark of the trees and the colors that we found in the earth that's around. And we took the school, which is a rather large building, and broke it into small pieces, and each one is kind of influenced by the colors we found in the site. So the school is intended to feel like it was kind of born on this site. It wasn't something that was added. It was something that kind of grew out of the site. And that same color pattern is extended into the existing building, so it seamlessly stitches together to the new building. And the whole idea is that the entire campus looks like it was all created and born at the same time, not developed over a period of time. And that gives you a snapshot of what's coming. We're super excited about it. We think kids from pre-K to 8th grade, they'll be here 9 years. We hope that it's going to have a deep respect for our environment and the natural setting and what makes Osceola such a beautiful place. They'll be in a building that fortunately has a site that extends the learning experience beyond the walls of the classroom. I think that's the last slide I had. So it is? Okay.
Great summary, Jose.
Sure.
Great job, Jose and Don. With that, I will turn it over for questions to our board members.
Board members, any comments or questions?
Yeah, I'll have some, Kelvin.
Please.
I don't know what I've done to my video. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I could hear you, yes.
Okay. Okay, there we are. So I have 4 or 5 questions, if you'll indulge me, board. First of all, my first question was for Mr. Clinch, with there was a baseball, softball field in the first conceptual drawings that we saw. That has now been eliminated. I understand the unique space here and the challenge we have with space. And I guess just so we can put this direct, is there any room at all for a ball field?
Mr. Booth, let me go ahead and chime in. So we did look at the wooded area that is right about where the pictorial for the Eco Trail is shown. And because of the tight proximity, we determined that it would not fit. So we worked with our district athletic director, Ryan Adams, to talk through the amenities, and his feelings were that as long as he could get a soccer field, a running track, and hardball courts, that he would be acceptable to that. And further, there was some conversation regarding the use or limited use of the softball fields that we currently have at other middle schools. So that's really what drove the decision, was, the lack of space to be able to site the softball field in this area here. But then, how much use would it get, in comparison to, some of our other K-8s and middle schools that have the softball fields.
So there is room for it, or no room for it?
It would be very tight, and it would require that this entire conservation area come out. And this is a low-lying, very wet area. It would possibly fit if we, shoehorned it in. It would not be an ideal alignment for the field, but we had to do quite a bit of juggling to get the track in. As you can see, we had to skew the angle to get it to fit.
I do remember the first conversations you had. It was going to be a track, but it was going to have some jogs and some nooks and some crannies and some curves. I do remember that first concept.
Right. Yeah, we were able to fit a traditional 400-meter 6-lane running track by skewing it at this angle. But in doing so, there wasn't a lot of room left. And this is a very challenging part of the site. It's low-lying, it's wet, and we were trying to preserve some of the conservation areas that speak to the eSTEM program.
Okay, look, I'll let it go. I would certainly prefer that. Yeah, I mean, I talked with Dr. Pace earlier. Certainly, I'm kind of partial to baseball and softball. It's a big part of my life. But and I think we have we have the largest little league up the road, about 6 miles in the entire Southeast. But I do understand that some of the fields at like Narcoossee and other places are not being utilized that much. And look, I get it. At St. Cloud Middle, they're able to go over to the high school. Same thing at Harmony Middle. So anyway, I'm sure they'll figure it out. So I'll let that go. Are we talking about inside now too, or are we just talking about exterior?
We could talk about the inside.
Okay, I just wanted to throw this out there. We don't have to have a lot of discussion. Just since I got some direction from a media specialist who I know very well. Want to make sure we make that media center the furniture really mobile. Maybe not necessarily the bookshelves that are on the wall, but all the furniture. I guess Dr. Pace, I think the term uses the maker space and whatnot. That we want to make sure that a lot of that stuff is mobile. I know our media specialists really like that when they can utilize their media centers by being able to move around a lot of the furniture, which includes some of the middle shelving, includes all of the seating and tables. I know we have some media centers where we've installed some kind of permanent, stationary furniture, and it's not that they don't appreciate it; they would just rather have it where they can move it and kind of manipulate it the way they want. Is that okay?
Sure, that's easy to do. In fact, we had discussed that at the stakeholder meeting. Incidentally, your media specialist is a rock star. She's right in there with the state-of-the-art media centers. So a lot of the innovative thinking that you'll find in this media center has to do with her input. She was a real pleasure to work with.
Yeah, she happens to be my wife too.
Oh, well, there you go.
So we'll move on from that. A couple of things. I saw the name Canoe Creek Academy. Dr. Pace, I'm sure that's just an oversight. It will be called Canoe Creek K8. I guess that leads to a second question, which would be the road signage up front. Do we have any plans within this project to maybe not just change the sign, but to maybe upgrade it a little bit?
Yes, Mr. Booth, the school will be Canoe Creek K8, not Canoe Creek Academy. We just had not had an opportunity to change that slide once I'd had a chance to review it. Also, going back to the media center issue, I think that you'll find that we've now gone almost entirely to media center furniture, very much like what we have at Harmony Middle School, our newest school, where tables and chairs and shelves can be moved and are mobile depending on, the work that the media specialist is doing. And regarding signage, I do know that is a definite need for improvement on the school. It just, because of the beautiful conservation areas there in the front, people don't realize that there's a school tucked away back in there. So I will be working with the team to improve that signage as well.
Yeah, please let's maybe add that to the list if the other board members are okay, and Dr. Pace is as well, because I do believe that I think it was brought up right at the beginning about the transition and parents maybe not actually understanding. So I do think it would be a good timing to go ahead and make that signage change out front and to say, hey, this is something new, this is different, and let's do that. A couple other questions, Mr. Soto, if you don't mind. What is an Eco Tract?
An Eco Tract is track plus. What that means is that you could start on the track, but your trail could extend into the natural setting that you see there and actually do the trail. So instead of going around the circle, you could actually extend it.
But as far as like functional, it's an athletic track with the with
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah. It's a regular athletic track. Yeah.
And Dr. Pace, I guess this question is for you, and this is my last one. I did hear something just briefly about an ag program. What is that going to look like at this school? Or do we know quite yet?
I haven't had a chance to touch base with Mr. Noyes and Ms. Miller, the administrative team at the school, but as you know, we're focusing on this environmentally focused STEM piece. And the designers are certainly building that in with the bioswale, the eco garden, the eco trail. So it might not be as animal-based as some of our ag programs, but more environmental and plant-based in this particular piece, but we'll certainly look at that, and I can bring you some additional information about that.
Actually, Dr. Pace, I think that's great. When we do go through that and we are creating those programs, I think that's 100% on point. And obviously this facility is not really set up for an animal-based program, but even though it may not be a traditional animal agriculture or anything like that, I mean, I think it could be a good tie-in maybe to still kind of incorporate some of the traditional ag things like the middle school FFA programs and some of those things, because they do a lot of that environmental, working with water engineering, environmental engineering, and all those things where we know there's a ton of job opportunities for graduates. So
I'll certainly follow up both with Ms. Stevanowitz, Mr. Allen, and also Mr. Noyes about your interest in that. I do know that Melanie had already begun planning to make sure that the Project Lead the Way programs that we develop for Canoe Creek K8 feed into the Project Lead the Way and ag programs that we have at our other high schools in that area.
That's great. Chairman Soto, that's all I had. And thank you, Mr. Clinch, and to all the team. It looks great, and I appreciate all the hard work.
Thank you, sir.
Very good questions and comments, Mr. Booth. I see Terry Castillo has her hand up.
Yes, thank you so much. I think that Mr. Booth went over, at least in part, what I was going to ask about, which was basically regarding the curriculum. So a lot of the conversation that we had was based on the EcoSTEM lobby, the fact that is this a designated STEM school, or are we just incorporating some of the choice programs that we already have in other schools into this particular institution as well?
If I may, Chairman Soto?
Of course.
We will be building on some of the programs that we've already had, but this is truly a different focus with the environmental STEM. It's a unique program that Ziskovich was able to bring forward to us, that Mr. Noyes and Ms. Miller are researching in terms of how they're going to make it come alive for this particular school to make it unique and special, like we try to do with all of our programs.
Okay, so it will be a different kind of program than we have in other schools. So we're calling it a EcoSTEM school, yes?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I love that. I think it looks really, really good. I really appreciate the incorporation of the environmental pieces into the school and making it functional. I think it's really important that we continue to teach our children to be good stewards of our environment. So this is kind of exciting for me. Can't wait to see it. That's all I have.
Thank you, Ms. Castillo, and I do share your opinion. It's a beautiful school. I love the pictures, and I like the whole eco-friendly aspect to it. Dr. Pace, I think you have your hand up.
Sir, I've gotten really good at this. I can't get my hand to go down, so I apologize, sir. Just pretend like it's not there.
Terry's hand's still up.
Mr. Chair, I think you have to take our hand down, if I'm not mistaken. No, maybe not. Hold on, let me see. Oh, yeah, I figured it out. Thank you so much. I should know this.
Yeah, and I saw Clarence raise his hand and then take it down really fast. I caught you, Clarence. All right. Dr. Pace, what's next on the workshop agenda?
Yes, sir, Chairman Soto. Next on the agenda, we have some information about the Point Siena High School projects that are ongoing. We, as you know, have the Business Academy and the CEP project. And tonight, for your consideration, we also wanted to bring back some additional information about the proposed lighting project. Mr. Clinton.
Thank you, Dr. Pace, Chairman Soto. The next item is the Point Siena High School lighting upgrade project. As you recall, this item was pulled from the 4-7 board meeting. There were questions regarding the general conditions and how those overlap with the other two projects at Point Siena High School, being the Osceola Business Academy and the Central Energy Plant. So we have, at the request of the board, went back and attempted to renegotiate the GCs. Initially, what you saw on the 7th was $175,000. We were able to lower those to $159,000 and change, a GC reduction of $15,344. So that's an overall GMP reduction of $15,487.75. So you will see a item 12.07 on the board agenda this evening. It's a blue sheeted item in the amount of $1,841,626.85. So with that, I'm going to turn over the presentation to Mr. Andrew Kennerly. He is the Senior Project Manager with Wharton Smith. Andrew, take it away.
Thank you, Mark, and good afternoon, board and Dr. Pace. And I appreciate this opportunity to share some more information. So if you have the slide in front of you, I just wanted to talk briefly about the scope. So the project is a little more complex than it might first seem. It's not simply replacing light bulbs. There's a number of different types of fixtures. We're in multiple buildings. There's interior and exterior fixtures, as well as several different types of canopy. There's multiple wall-mounted and exterior pole-mounted fixtures as well. Put together a few facts here regarding some of the fixtures. We've got selective demolition. So that in and of itself is needs some extra attention because we're demoing just specific fixtures. There's over 5,400 total fixtures to be removed from this project. Next, we highlight there's 1,600 new 2x4 lay-in fixtures. Those are being provided by maintenance. And then there's another 50 different fixture and device types. Some of these are much more complex than others, and a few of them are definitely much more straightforward. But a couple of the areas would present some challenges. We've actually reviewed those with maintenance ahead of time and have a very detailed idea of what it takes. We walked that with all three of the electrical bidders. So there's a lot that is going to need to go into that. Additionally, we've got new occupancy sensors in every space, as well as power packs that go above the ceilings. And then there's daylight elements. But the next slide will show just a general overview of the campus here. In the green highlighted areas, that's representing buildings that we'll be working inside of. The red rectangle on the top of the screen is building 12, and that's only a couple years old. So that building does not need the LED upgrade. And then the more square shaped red rectangle, that's the 9th grade center that maintenance has already completed. And also want to point out in the lower right part of the screen, there's a gray rectangle. That's the location of the new business academy. And that's where our team who's working on the CEP and the business academy spend 95% of their time on site. So just kind of showing all the green throughout the site, that's where our other team needs to be focused on. We'll talk a little bit about some of the staff here in the next couple slides. So on the schedule, I just wanted to highlight, this was put together last week prior to the governor's notice about the extension of the distance learning. So originally, even prior to that, when this GMP was first bid and put together in February, we had no idea what was going to happen with COVID. And for the most part, the majority of the work was going to need to be completed in either very short, small periods of time at night. And then we also knew that there's about a 10-week lead time on a number of fixtures. So although we could start with the owner furnished 2x4 lay-in fixtures, there was still roughly 4,000 other fixtures that have to be ordered and delivered, and then those would be installed in a much shorter time frame. So we expected to have to work during the day with a daytime supervisor and then also work a full evening shift, because there's only so much we could do during the day while the students are on site and education was happening. We were going to try to do some areas outside of those classrooms. At this point, though, with the distance learning remaining through the rest of this school year, the majority of the work we would expect could be done now during normal business hours. So that's going to help tremendously. It's going to mean that individual areas such as classrooms don't have to start and finish in an 8-hour period from, say, 3 p.m. till midnight. It can now be done in a much more efficient, higher production rates, where we could turn a team loose to just focus on taking out the lights. We could have a team behind them putting in the new lights. It allows us to finish the work much more quickly, and it's going to result in additional savings in the line of working one shift. So I think I covered everything on this one for now. I think we could go to the next here. So I know there were some questions regarding our Wharton Smith's general conditions or our staff costs for the project. I know one of the questions was about the capacity of the team currently mobilized doing the Central Energy Plant and the Osceola Business Academy. So we'll talk to that, but then I also wanted to mention first, the way that we do work as a construction manager at risk, any type of general condition staff costs that are not spent get returned to the district. So anytime that we don't need a superintendent, even if there's one listed in the GMP, if he's not out there on the site dedicated to the project, then we're not charging him to the project. We verify this and submit weekly payroll reports with our pay applications, and the facility staff is very good and thorough about making sure those are correct. So the main message there, I just wanted to get across, we're only going to bill for the time spent on the project. And then the second bullet really about the capacity of that team. They're managing over 50 agreements. There's multiple design teams involved. There's just a lot that goes into what they're doing right now, and they're focused in on that Osceola Business Academy portion of the project as the CEP project continues to overlap it for about another month or so. But we do not want to jeopardize what that team has done over the past 6 months plus by putting too much on them right now at this time. So there was logistic issues, whereas they were there during the day, and originally we expected most of the LED lighting changes to happen at night. That was one main problem, and then they're also just at capacity right now. So moving into the next slide, I want to show some of the savings that we were able to generate between the CEP project and the Business Academy project. So the bottom number on the right-hand section in the green, 67,510, we were able to make sure that we didn't bill the district for any extra time between both projects. And we're looking at these projects together, even though they're separate. We review the GCs weekly together to make sure that we know what project team members are assigned to and to ensure that their billings are done correctly. But overall, we were able to save 67,000 plus in GCs on this combination. And we looked at ways to do that as well with the lighting project. So next slide, we'll talk about how we did this. This is just the reduced general conditions worksheet. Myself, I looked at the whole of things. I've been involved in the CEP, the Business Academy, and now hopefully the lighting project. I did reduce my time down to 24 hours a week. We still show the superintendent at 40. The senior craft foreman at 40 is the position that we believe now would not be needed. Although he wasn't at 100% for the project on a weekly basis, we still believe most of that time would go away now. And then the next two positions, the project engineer and the project assistant, we did reduce that a little bit as well. I think it was actually the engineer that we reduced, but I'm trying to keep him as low as possible and utilize our engineer at the Business Academy if possible. So I would expect to see some savings on here as well. And then the next slide, actually, this is from the Business Academy and CEP overlap. I know it's pretty tight to read. We could always get some more information or the detailed PDF or Excel doc, but we identified that no position was going to be over 40 hours a week. So for example, the positions in yellow are really the ones who had time on both of those projects. And then on the next slide, we'll show the lighting project and how we made sure that there's no overlap between positions with the Business Academy and the LED retrofit project. So I know we lost the columns off to the left, but under the green in the middle of the screen, the first row is actually from myself on the Business Academy. I was at 8 hours a week on that. And then I'm also the first one underneath the orange heading for the LED lighting project. So between all three projects, I'm going to be spending almost a full week between those projects, and we don't have any overlap, and I'm also not at 40 hours even between those projects. And the other, I was just going to say the other identified position was our PA, and we're going to try to make sure we maximize the PA's time so that we're saving as much as possible there. On the subcontract side, I think we've got some great bids here from the electricians. About 94% of the direct costs were actually hard bid, competitively bid. I had multiple electricians at our walkthrough. We actually had a couple more at the walkthrough, like Terry's Electric was there. They just weren't able to bid this one. We had 3 acoustical ceiling bids. And then for some of the minor trades where we had allowances included in the GMP, although those aren't required to be officially competitively bid, we still get multiple quotes and ensure that their rates are within the industry norm. But we've got those other contractors involved that we'll need to manage as well. Overall, though, we do feel this GMP is at a great price. I know when maintenance priced this out last year about this time, they were running well over $2 million. We previously were expecting and seeing about 2.5% increase per month. And right now with the volatility, it's tough to say what would happen if we were to rebid it. But the 2 other electrical bids, even back in February, were approaching 1.9 and one was over 2 million. The price that we ended up going with was from United Electrical Contractors, and they were about 1.3 or 1.4 million. And they were offering a really great price because they're already on site doing the Business Academy project. So I think that was going to work out well for them too. So that, again, not necessarily directly related, although it's a sub that we were able to bring into the mix. I feel like they've given us a very strong price. The next couple slides just highlighted a few of the benefits to the project. I think everybody's aware of those. I would just say, we'd like to do the project, and I appreciate the opportunity to present this information. I think the last slide highlighted some of what I've already talked about regarding going the savings on the general requirements. We avoid the redundant items like the copiers, the office trailer, temporary toilets, because those are already on site right now. I mentioned I thought this was a great price from United Electrical. They're on site. And with that, I've covered everything that I had, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. I believe that Mr. Clarence is hands up. Mr. Thacker.
Roughly. I'm sorry, can you hear me now?
No, yes, I can hear you now.
Okay, I apologize. I had it on mute. I forgot to take it off. Thank you, Andrew, for your presentation. I've got a couple of questions, some I didn't understand. Early on, I think it was Mr. Clinch was talking. Hold on, I'm trying to get back to the presentation so I can see so I can see the document and turn it where I want to move it. He had said, I think it was your general requirements, you'd cut out 15,000 or something like that, or 13,000 or some number, I can't remember.
Yeah, Mr. Thacker, that was on the general conditions.
General condition, yeah. So you, and then he stated a price for the whole project, $1.8 million something. Are you I'm a little confused because when I look at this, you were at your staff member detail for your general conditions was at 330. You showed at 150, 160, call it. that's $170,000. Did you reduce the total by that or not?
So I'm not sure which slide you're referring to right now.
I'm looking in the the presentation that's in my packet. It's 26. It had the full list of characters in. You as a senior project manager, Logan, Fernando, Daryl. Then I'm looking.
Yeah.
The
Okay.
next one.
So on slide 26, and I can understand the question from this particular slide is here to show the shared savings that we had between the Business Academy and the CEP project. So this one actually doesn't identify the reduction that we made. Slide 27 would be the revised general conditions for the LED project.
Okay.
What we wanted to identify is that we were able to make a reduction on the CEP and Business Academy because we had the same staff. But on the lighting project, since I'm not assigned more than 8 hours to the Business Academy, there's just not as much overlap between the lighting project and the Business Academy.
All right, well, I'm very confused because slide 20, the first 26, the heading on the slide says campus-wide lighting upgrades, general conditions, and it adds up to $330,782. Then I go to the next slide and it says campus-wide lighting upgrades, general conditions, worksheet, $159,000. That to me looks like a reduction of $170,000. I'm not following what you just said at all. I'm sorry.
Okay, if we could go back to slide 26. So
this is what you proposed 2 weeks ago as the staff allocated to this project.
I'll clarify that
it was in our package as the general conditions applied to this project. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, the original general conditions in the packet from 2 weeks ago was 175,000 total.
But this slide, okay.
Yeah,
why do you have a slide then that's not have anything to do with the bid in there? And I just want to say one more thing, and I'm not going to say another word about this project. You did a nice job of going through. I've never questioned your subs. I've never questioned the pricings from the subs. I've never questioned that we need lights so kids can see in the building. I understand all that. It's not a question of whether we need to do this. It's a question of whether we're getting the pricing that I believe we should be getting. I'm not sure. I'm going to have a hard time understanding. We have one sub at $1.5 million, of which 40% of that's over probably materials. And we got another one for acoustical ceiling of $100,000. How it takes 2 people to supervise that work for 2 subs. I'm never going to ever understand that. So we can go on. I don't have another word to say about this.
Oh, I just wanted to make sure that my microphone was turned on. So I don't see any other hands up right now. Anything else that anyone wants to add to the discussion?
Mr. Chair, this is Andrew Kennelly. If I could, I would like to clarify one item.
Of course. Thank you.
Okay, so if we could go back to slide 26. I do understand Mr. Thacker's question regarding, why is this slide in here? But I would like to highlight that the yellow highlight in the upper left says Poinciana Classroom Building Addition. And I do apologize for the confusion. It's just the heading is on every single slide. So the intent wasn't to show that particular chart as the staff costs on the lighting project. This is just merely showing that if we had any opportunity to, from our past experience, if we could maximize the staff, we certainly would. This is more of just to say we did it before on the last project. And if we were able to do it on the lighting job, we definitely would. The next slide on 27 shows the revised GCs, where in the first submission from 2 weeks ago, we were at 175,000. And I think if Mr. Thacker I believe you had added up our GCs, GRs, bond, insurance, and fee. If you added all of those items together from the previous, that was about 320,000. And that might be leading to some of the confusion. It's just that those 300,000 on our soft cost on the LED retrofit job is just a very similar number, general conditions number from the Business Academy. So I do apologize for that confusion in trying to explain.
All right, thank you. I'm looking for hands, but I don't see any. I just want to make sure I'm right about that. All right, so.
Mr. Chairman.
Oh, yes, Mr. Weissier, I see your hand.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. And Mark, as I said to you earlier, thank you for your time and work on this. I'll maybe make this comment, which I think will maybe capture some of, and Mr. Thacker, I'm not trying to speak for you here, but maybe just try to come along and maybe affirm where I think some of your frustration lies. I understand your point in the confusion of 2 slides. I do think that there was some clarity provided by Andrew in his most recent comments that clear some of that up. But I also think, Andrew, one of the key things to take away from this is, I think probably more than anything, you have board members that are frustrated that we're having to ask for and look for these things, as opposed to it being something that was taken into consideration earlier on, as opposed to us having to go through our last meeting, identify areas of concern or frustration, have it repenciled, brought back to us. I'm using Mr. Thacker because him and I were probably 2 of the more vocal on this at the last meeting. Both of us are, we are very understanding, all of us actually, I should say on this, we're very understanding of the fact that you're a for-profit company that should make money, and we want you to make money. We have no problem with that. What we look for, though, is an ongoing understanding of the partnership and the value of the work that the school board is allowing companies, not just you, but companies, to work on our behalf. And when we look at something and feel like we're being overcharged, or it's higher or fatter than we'd like it to be, it can be frustrating for us. And so I think what you're probably seeing there is that. It's not, by the way, directed at you or even your company. We value you, we value your company and the partnership we have with the district, with what you guys have with the district. But I think that's a really important thing. Our job is to always look at and think about how do we save money for the taxpayers while making sure that we build solid working partnerships with vendors such as yourselves. And, you know, we have you on a project at PHS already. I think part of our thought process would be that without us having to think of it, you guys would have thought of it for us to say, hey, partners, how do we come together? Make sure that we find every efficiency and every savings that we can up front, as opposed to us having to talk it through and then come back. So it's just a comment. There's no criticism in that, other than I think that's part of what you're hearing, and what you probably heard or heard of from our last board meeting was frustration around that. Mr. Thacker, if I said anything that's contrary to what you were thinking or feeling, please correct me, but I think that's probably a pretty good summary or summation of where we've been and where we are.
Thank you, Mr. Weissier. Seeing, I don't believe there's any other request for comments or questions at this time. I'll go back to Dr. Pace.
Chairman Soto, I appreciate the feedback from the board. We will continue to take that and work through our processes to make sure that we're bringing you the information that you need to make good decisions as we work with our partners to try to meet the needs of the district, but also be, of course, responsive and responsible with our taxpayer dollars, particularly as we move forward and understand that sales tax, you know, will certainly be impacted by the current situation. But Chairman Soto, that's all that we have as far as an agenda item for the facilities workshop, unless you wanted to open it up for any other board discussion or questions. We'd be ready for our meeting.
I just want to check with Mr. Weissire before I adjourn. I think.
I'm good, Chairman.
Well, very well. Then at this time, the workshop meeting is adjourned, and we'll reconvene for a public meeting at 5:30. That is all. Thank you.